Alright. Promised a nicer version of card flowers using Polypaint. So, to open Polypaint, go to Windows, General Editor, and Content Browser. It's going to pull up all this stuff. And there's a bunch of different stuff you can grab here. There's like animation presets. There's random models of, where am I going? Like animals. So you can literally just put this like awkward big fish or awkward cat model into your scene. There's a lot of random stuff like this. Sure, let's pull up the turtle. This is basically like import a turtle model into your scene. And now we have a ginormous turtle in your scene. Anyway, so there's fun stuff in there. I would recommend poking around. It's pretty weird. What we're looking for in this case is paint effects. And there's a bunch of different things that you can use. You can draw, feathers in. So basically what you do is just click and then just drag, and it's going to like populate these weird little feathers for you. And you can go in and modify all of these settings like pretty extensively. I just want to show you really quick sort of basically how to use this tool for specifically flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and just from some of these look really, really insane. So I'm just going to be like, sure, let's do dandelions and like let's draw a squiggle, and it's going to populate a crap ton of little dandelions. And they look too good. I want an uglier looking flower. Okay, cool. That feels, where am I going? That's also really ugly. So like these are also designed, sure, let's go with this. This should be interesting. Actually I think the dahlias usually turn out pretty well. Yes, okay, great. Let's go with the dahlia. So there's also some other really strange things you can do. If you want, you can populate alien grasses, but they have lots of presets for stuff like cattails. They have food, so apparently you can populate Fruit Loops into your scene, which I forgot about. That's phenomenal. They also, the other one is that's pretty powerful is the trees and plants. So you can use these to generate like, cherry trees and like other fancy stuff. In plants, they also have presets, which make me very happy, for carrots as well as lettuce. And lettuce one is so unbelievably questionable looking, but it renders pretty okay, but it looks really dumb when you first draw it out. Alright, so that's basically making the Polypaint stuff. You kind of hopefully get the point there. Pretty much pick a thing and draw, and then you can do settings later. So we're going to go in and we're going to go ahead and render these with the Arnold render view. And you'll notice that nothing shows up. And it's not like I'm in the correct place on my plane for these. But by default, these do not render in Arnold. They're actually designed to render, interestingly enough, in Maya software. So Maya software is not going to pick up any of your nice, Arnold lights or any of your nice lighting, but it does do a fairly not terrible job of rendering the actual, textures. Like these were pretty much designed for software and hardware. You can see the lettuce looks way less terrible than it did. I don't even know what they use for half of these textures, but, we have lettuce now. You can see they've mapped in some transparency, and oh god, this fruit looks appalling. But anyway, so I'm going to focus on, for one, getting these to actually render in Arnold, so that you can apply better textures to them, and two, showing you how to apply the nicer textures to them. So I'm just going to go ahead and just delete like the extra weird stuff like the lettuce and as much as I love the Cheerios, I'm going to kill them. Oh god, that was my ground plane. And I'll keep the cherry, what the heck. Alright, so what you need to do is, to make these renderable in Arnold, this is usually what I do, is go go modify, convert, and you're looking for paint effects to polys. And usually I do open these settings. There are some different stuff I want to check. Quads, I like quads and not tries. Hide strokes is basically going to be, do you want to hide this little like line that you drew on your screen to generate these trees? And then vertex color mode is just sort of different ways to color your vertices. So theoretically you could bring some of the colors over, but like not all of them. And poly limit is going to be, hey, if you hit 10,000 polys or whatever we have this set to, stop generating stuff then. Because this can like explode your scene pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and you'll actually see that like once we do that, it does actually transfer some of these textures over, which is nice, and I've actually, oddly enough, never seen it do before. But at this point, we should have a cherry tree that renders, because right, like we converted that to polygons. The little plants aren't really doing anything, but what we can do is then go through. All the leaves are basically treated as a single object. So we should be able to go into the shape node, turn off opacity, and then theoretically, if I have done this not terribly, it will go through and actually update with theoretically clear leaves. Most of the time, I don't have a huge success getting that to actually work, which is a little bit frustrating, honestly. And this is operating as a Fong. That's amazing. So theoretically, you could switch this to something like an AI standard surface. Usually when you do that, it'll pretty much get rid of all of the, texturing and stuff on there, which is kind of annoying. But at this point, you would be able to go in and map in whatever weird stuff you wanted. So like theoretically, if we put in our AI standard surface 1, we would then have our very awkward little tree setup mapped in here, and you can see that now we have like nice sort of shadows on the ground based on the leaves and all of that good stuff. And it is basically just pulling our cards in. So you can use cards for leaves, you can use cards for flowers, and that's the same thing that I usually do for the flowers. So if you're ever looking for just like a flower, it's not like the default. Once you sort of grab these guys and do modify, convert, paint effects to polys, usually by default it looks pretty janky. We go ahead and hopefully my render view isn't being catastrophically slow right now. Be pretty salty about that. Just like hide these trees. I feel like that'll help. Or it won't help? Question mark? Yes. Awkward. I've hidden the trees, but I've left the giant floating leaves just casually in my scene. No wonder it looks so strange. Alright. So I'm gonna go ahead and just crop my render view to this. Zoom in aggressively on one of these flowers. And same thing we did before, we should be good to go in and apply the AI standard surface 1, which is what I've been using as my weird little card shader. And theoretically, that should dump the cards. You can see in this case it's apparently showing up on the back of the object, which is a little weird. But we now have that strange little leaf texture displaying on our objects. We just need to go through and actually make sure that this is set to turn off opacity, which, like I said, I always forget. And now if we look at this, we get these weird looking little sort of goofy flowers. The nice thing about the Polypaint sort of leaves and flowers is they lay out the UVs basically like default grids. So what you can do is like super easy like before to go through, just grab the UV shells, and you can just scale all of these down. So you can make a, maybe pick like a variety of petals to use for this. But basically what you can do is just sort of like cherry pick, and now you've generated something with like actual flower petals on it. And in this case it still looks pretty silly, because I've stretched the UVs, I've not done a whole lot to actually like maintain a nice texture. But you can do a lot of stuff with just sort of making this look nicer with cards, which I would very much encourage you guys to do. So yeah, I mean that's basically cards and Polypaint Flowers. Just remember that you need to actually convert them to polys for them to show up in stuff like Arnold and Redshift.